Hello, everyone. What if I told you that to navigate the workplace better, you might not need something out of this world? You might not need another online course or a new app. It's not anything mind blowing, but it's actually the person who's sitting right next to you, right? Maybe it's that lovely 50-year-old colleague that never reads their emails, or your 20-year-old Gen Z intern who just redesigned your whole email interface in 5 minutes and just cannot stop giving you guys ideas for your workplace, right? So today on Career Therapy, we'll be talking about the most underused power move in the workplace. And this is learning across generations. And this is not just our ordinary mentoring, but I am talking about reverse mentoring, right? So whether you're fresh out of university and you're just entering the workplace, or you are actually counting down to your retirement, you are still someone's teacher or someone's student, right? So if you're wondering what reverse mentoring is and what it entails, you are in the right place. Let's have a discussion about it. Welcome to Career Therapy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Career Therapy. And today's topic is exciting me because we are speaking to reverse mentoring. Okay, so I'll first talk to the value of the older generation in the workspace, and then also speak to the value of the younger generation in the workspace, and then we'll then get dive straight into reverse mentoring. Okay, and just for context, the older generation I'm speaking to baby boomers and your Gen X, and then for the younger generation I'm mainly speaking to your millennials, your Gen Zs, and Gen Alpha. I'm not sure if they're in the workspace already, but Gen Alpha, yes. So there's so much to learn from our older generation, and this is because the older generations, especially our baby boomers and our Gen X, have a wealth of experience and bring decades of perspective into the workplace, right? They've been through a lot, literally from fighting for equal right to seeing market crashes to seeing tech disruptions and office politics, literally in every flavor. They've seen them and they've survived all of them. So the older generation brings a lot. So what we will unpack right now is what can Gen Z gain from the older generation? What can Gen Zs and millennials gain from the older generation, right? So we know that the young generation has a spark, in everything, and they almost have exposure to all information. But the truth is the fact that they lack experience capital, which is what you only get from trial and error. And that is what the older colleagues have an advantage over the younger generation. So what is the value that the older generation brings to the younger generation? The first thing is, as much as I know, Guti, the young generation likes to saying, your mom, your dad, your aunt, as an inside joke for the younger generation. But it is actually an advantage to have a mom or an aunt or a dad in the workplace, right? They literally bring so much advice. I know this firsthand. Google said they give you a lot of advice about the hard times that they've been through. They bring a lot of wisdom that they can pass down to you, because they've literally seen a lot, their regrets, they tell you about all their regrets. They can see a toxic dynamic from afar, and they teach you independence. They teach you good, so you need to depend on yourself, so the advice literally that you get from your mom or your dad at home is what you literally can get from the older generation in the workspace. And I think that that's amazing, even if you don't have that dynamic, or a mother or an aunt or a dad that had been in the corporate space. If you really find an older generation colleague that you have a good relationship with, you literally have a mom or an aunt or a dad or a mentor in the workspace. So that is one thing that they bring into the workspace. And then as well as loyalty, and I know that the younger generation have seen the negative effects of loyalty. But if you find that you're in an organization that is good, that is healthy, that has a great dynamic, you find that that has its own rewards. And I know that the old generation speaks to that type of commitment, to say that you need to commit, you need to stay in this organization, and tell you about the rewards that you reap by sitting in that organization. So that is another thing that the older generation brings to the Gen Zs in the workspace, right? As well as experience, right? I've already touched on this, that, either corporate politics, company policies, industry knowledge, the older workers usually are able to bring this into the workspace, and they are happy to pass them along to the younger generation, especially if you guys are definitely in the same field. They are happy to share this knowledge with you, right? And then also interpersonal skills. The older generation is really great with interpersonal skills. I think it helps because they didn't grow up in the digital space where they were chatting or, communicating in means of technology. So they know how to build relationships from the ground up, literally. So they have really great social skills and workplace interpersonal skills, and they can definitely pass them along to the younger generation. So literally think about this. Why would you go into your first hand leadership crisis alone, right? When there's someone who has been through this probably about 10 times, right? So it's always good to touch base with our older colleagues. So according to the Deloitte report of 2023, organization that harness intergenerational teams see up to 25% higher productivity. And why is that? That is because they combine experience and innovation. Okay. So now we will go straight into the value of millennials and Gen Zs in the workspace, right? And this is exciting me because these are my people. So basically, millennials and Gen Zs are not just digital natives, they bring a lot to the table. First of all, obviously, tech agility. And this is because Gen Zs were literally born with iPhones in their phone. Um, I almost said they're iPad babies. I'm sorry, they're not iPad babies. But basically, they're individuals that are really highly skilled around navigating the internet and the digital space, and which is amazing in today's context because everything is on the internet. Especially, they're really good with digital marketing and all the likes. So that's a very important feature to having Gen Zs in the workspace, right? And then obviously they are comfortable with the DEIB initiative, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. I forgot the B, and belonging. They're really quite comfortable with that initiative compared to the older generation, and this is because I do think that they've grown up in situations where they're exposed to people from diverse backgrounds with the globalized environment where and the conversation around minority groups coming up. So I do think that diversity doesn't scare this generation. They actually advocate for this type of arrangements in their workspaces. So that is an amazing feature about the younger generation, as well as authenticity, transparency, and independence. I think that Gen Zs are really known for not mincing their words, for being open about what they believe in, advocating for their rights, and speaking up. And I think that we all know this. They're very opinionated, and they are not afraid of standing up for what's right, which is an amazing feature in this environment. And they thrive under clear instructions, direct communication, and that is definitely something that you definitely want in your workspace. So Gen Zs and millennials are quite good with that, as well as their comfort with change. The younger generation has been through a lot of disruptions, especially at a high rate. Some of them were born about 9/11. They are born free. In our context. So they're definitely comfortable with change. They've seen everything, so they understand the fact that change is inevitable and it does not scare them or make them resistant to change. They're actually happy with change, and they're flexible and quite resilient. So Gen Zs bring unique set of characteristics into the workspace, and that is why we love them. Okay, let us talk to my favorite corporate hack, which is reverse mentoring. So let us first define it. What is reverse mentoring? So this is when younger employees mentor older employees, right? It's often on topics like tech, digital trends, or DEI, right? So this approach comes from the late 1900s from GE's Jack Welch, who used reverse mentoring to teach senior executives about the internet at that time, right? But the modern reverse mentoring goes far beyond sharing knowledge about technology. It's a program that focuses on how senior executives can learn about strategic issues, leadership, and the mindset of how to approach their work when it comes to the younger generation. Okay, so an example, a company that comes up when we speak about reverse mentoring that has championed reverse mentoring very well is PwC, where reverse mentoring was used to close the gap, the generational gap around diversity awareness, right? The senior leaders there gained unfiltered insights into millennials and Gen Z's perspectives, right? And then the policies started to shift, which was a plus for them. So what are the benefits of reverse mentoring? First of all, is empathy building. You kind of understand the other generation's view and point of view, right? It's a cross skill development. Obviously, we're sharing skills across the different generations, right? And it builds stronger innovation pipelines. Okay. And then the big one is increased retention of millennials, right? Reverse mentoring programs provide millennials and Gen Zs with the transparency and recognition that they're seeking from management, okay? And obviously sharing of digital skills and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workspace, right? And most importantly, it humanizes the workplace, right? Everyone brings something to the table, and then everyone also eats. It brings collaboration, it brings teamwork, it brings innovation. It's a really, really brilliant way to solve the multi-generational gap. Okay. Now that we've discussed what reverse mentoring is, let's speak to how we can make sure that it works out for us, right? Because for reverse mentoring to work in the workspace, it requires a lot of patience from the different generations, right? The Gen Zs will not always do right. The baby boomers will also not always do the right thing. But if we slow down and we listen and we get curious, we can build something that's more powerful than productivity, which is respect between these two generations. Okay. So for the companies to get the right match, it's very crucial to first of all emphasize the diversity. Yabon. The matching needs to be across the different types of people, different regions, different departments, different locations, different personalities. I really like that one. It's better to match an introvert with an extrovert, right? Rather than pairing two introverts, So the companies need to really be intentional around the matching of these people, right? So the second thing is we need to consult with the mentees and the mentors before we pair them, okay? I think that it's very important for us to make sure that we have their buy-in. If a person is paired with a person that they really want to be paired with or are intentional about being paired with, that can actually yield more results if the mentors and the mentees are actually happy to be working with that specific person. As much as people will probably accept any type of pairing that we give to them, but if maybe the executive or the younger generation wants a specific person to be paired with, the more diverse the better. I think that can yield more results from the exercise. Okay. As well as address the fears and the distrust between these two parties, right? So many executives are fearful of revealing their lack of knowledge, to junior employees. So I think it's very important to set that record straight. The fact that, listen, if you are here, you're a mentee, so if you're a mentee, you might not know everything, even in that position of power that you're in. So we need to make sure that they're open to sharing these experiences, as well as the younger generation, their fear of being seen or their fear of approaching these type of people. We need to make sure that we address all those. Okay. And then just make sure that we get strong commitment from both parties. I know that there are usually a lot of competing priorities in our workspaces, and most of these programs fail because of people that do not prioritize this type of relationship. We've seen it happening with just the normal mentoring. So it can definitely still happen with reverse mentoring. If we cancel a couple of sessions, then the motivation for that or the progress quickly dwindles down. And so we need to just make sure that there is a certain drive and a certain commitment around this exercise to ensure that we see it materialize till the end. Okay. So next time you are motivated to call to say these kids or these old grannies or aunts or whatever, just pause and ask yourself, what can I learn here? Or better yet, what can I teach this person? Okay, because once these two generations or these two parties, the older generation and the younger generation, stop competing or stop blaming and pinpointing things, then the collaboration starts from there, and then we can definitely build better teams in the workspace. Okay, thank you for joining me on career therapy, and if you learned something today, let me know what you learned. Let me know what else you want to see in this channel. And also, like, I am challenging you to start this reverse mentoring conversation at work. Go talk to your managers, talk to people in the workspace to say, guys, let us start this initiative. There's a lot that we can learn from each other and make sure that we thrive in the corporate space. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Noetu Luli, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.